So we're back to talk about creativity and the power of creativity to get inside of problems and solve problems for us in whatever capacity, in whatever industry we're in. Today I'm joined again by my co-host, Mike Viseglia, and our special friend, Sheryl Clark, who's joined us today. She is the inspiration and the visionary behind Boston Proper, also its CEO and kind of lead provocateur in taking that brand forward and capturing the essence of an entire generation's interest and trying to figure out really where society is and where people's passions lie and capture that in a way that we can wear. What's kind of the vision, Sheryl, for when you walk in the door in the morning, with that as a little bit of a setup? We all get out of our house, we get in our car, we drive to the office, but when you walk in the door, you have a big responsibility, not just to the people you work with every day, but to the hundreds of thousands and millions of people that you're responsible for in some way.
Yeah, I really relate to her. I believe that I am her. I've always been her, and when this job and this opportunity came together, it was like perfect because I live and breathe her every day. Because for me, I had a journey to become a confident woman, to really feel empowered in the decisions that I made, and also to put on something sexy and feel good about it, especially as I aged. I mean, as you're in the fashion industry and you're young and everything's great, and then all of a sudden you're 40, and then all of a sudden you're 50. How do you make that transformation, and how can I help women make that transformation and still feel really good about themselves, feel good about how they look? It's not about your age, and it's not about your size. Actually, it's all about your confidence. It's all about your inner self. Yeah. And that's what I try to do every day, is help her realize her inner self allows her to be who she needs to be and wear it with confidence.
Yeah, that's a perfect setup for the conversation we're going to have today, in continuing to kind of drive inside of that, what goes on in your mind and what goes on in your team's mind, and all of those customers and wannabe customers that are out there that you're trying to find, that you're trying to connect with. Mike, from your perspective, when we're in this conversation about what kind of gets us rolling when we walk in the door for whatever it is we're doing that day, I have responsibility for a business that's in the business of problem solving and coming up with solutions and new pathways to figure out how to put brands in front of consumers or businesses to inspire them, to connect with them, to find a way so that people on the other side can in fact get that moment of enlightenment or that moment of, oh my gosh, that in this case would look fantastic on me, or that would be great for my significant other. I'd never considered it that way before. And in your world, what does that look like?
My world, my mission every day is to somehow either present or be reflective of some kind of authentic experience. Now, I manifest that in music and the people that I choose to be around musically, because music is what I do for a living and it's what I do all day long. It's in my brain. So I think that I'm compelled to try to make a connection to people. And I think the artist, the connection that an artist makes is to bring something to another person and transmit something to another person that actually lifts them up, that actually makes them feel the humanity that we all have. And I think to me, that's the common element that in whatever business there is, and I think in Sheryl's business, that can be the fashion can absolutely be reflective and cross over into art. And I think when that does, that's the magic moment that I feel that everybody can relate to, because everybody wants to feel their own humanity, and they want to see that humanity reflected in other people. Now, whether that's done through music or through fashion or whatever it might be, I think that's my mission in life, is to try to transmit an authentic human experience.
Catch that moment right there, Sheryl, where Mike talked about where fashion and art, in whatever form, comes to you. you have to take the inspiration of something that's intangible, right? Feelings, emotion, confidence, whatever, what inspires you, and turn it into something I can wear, or your customer can wear. What's that moment for you?
You know, I think that the most interesting thing for me is how you take, you said be authentic and authenticity, and we lost that, you know, in our journey when we went public. And when we went back to being a private company this January, the first thing we had to do is recreate the values of the company, because no one on my team had innovation, creativity, openness. They just weren't values that they lived by anymore. And so we had to recreate that. We had to because there was no way we could have an intersection of anything unless we got those values back. And one of the number one values we did is, you know, be authentic, which could be huge, right? I mean, authentic to your customers so that it matters, all that. But our words for it internally was embrace the sexuality of our customer and the brand, because that was what ruined us when we went down a path.
That you gave that up.
We gave that up. And giving that up, we gave up the creativity, the innovation, we gave up who we were. And so getting that back and making sure that everyone understood that you don't have to be sexy to work at Boston Proper. You just have to be able to embrace the fact that that's part of what we do. And so in doing that, it unleashed my creative team like no one's business. They got their mojo back, because they could then take what they knew, art and creativity and innovation, and go down paths that we weren't allowed to go down before.
So did you give them the right?
I did.
Right? The approval to talk about sexuality in a way that was earnest and honest. Not some other derivative of that, but in its most genuine form.
And you have to allow us to push the barriers a little bit, right? So at one point, Alana come to me with this Instagram ad he wanted to do, or picture, and it was Anna, and she had on a negligee and a fur coat, and you know, her hand was kind of going south, and it was amazing, right? It was so cool. Never could we have done that before. And he said, "Are you okay if we do it?" And I said, "Of course I'm okay. This is who we are." And examples like that are the examples that you set, that, you know, you think you're making a comment in a room and you're going to go post something, but it breaks through all the barriers in the company, and everyone then all of a sudden says, I have freedom to think. I can be innovative. I can be creative again. And it's just amazing how little things take it all away, because there's a lot of little things that got us to a place where we had lost it. And then little things can help everyone get it back. And you're just so lost without it. That's to me the biggest learning I've had is if I don't unleash the creativity of my team, how could we ever have anything that a customer would want to buy? Because then we're the same as everyone else and there's no difference. And that was what happened to us.
I'd like to go to a scene from a film, because I think it's really a perfect setup for this conversation. Out of The Devil Wears Prada, which is on some level cliche, as a film that represents fashion and life and art and humanity, but also is a reflection of an industry that is misunderstood. And in the era of the celebrity that carries the news, against the backdrop of some pretty difficult issues the world and our country is grappling with, fashion stands up as something that's unpredictable, but very predictable at the other end of the emotion, which is, I know when I go there, it's going to be okay. And that film in particular, and Meryl Streep in particular, set up a conversation between those that were around her and Anne Hathaway in particular, talking about, really was the context, about fashion in a way that was far more profound than initially was presented by the actress Anne Hathaway when she talked about her blue sweater. So I thought we'd play that as a way to kind of prod us into a conversation around the fashion and the clothes industry, from its surface to something a bit more profound.
And it's sort of comical how you think that you've made a choice that exempts you from the fashion industry when in fact You're wearing a sweater that was selected for you by the people in this room from a pile of stuff.
Oh, so great.
Could say it 100 times.
I got a chill.
So I had mentioned earlier that this kind of reflects an industry in a way. It's certainly that film. Maybe comment on that, on Sheryl, from your viewpoint. When you first saw this, how did that translate into your life, maybe? And because it is who you represent.
Well, the interesting thing, it hit me personally more than anything, because I remember, 30 years ago when I had the conversation with my dad, small Italian family, he's a lawyer, you're going to go to law school. And I said, I want to be a buyer. And he's a buyer of what? Right? And having that conversation about this is something I wanted to get into the fashion industry. And it was a real challenge. So for me, this movie kind of validated what I was doing and why I was in it. And not only to them, to all their friends who were like, yeah, she's in the whatever. What does she actually do? Right. So it was just so amazing to me. And we spend so much time talking about all those things she's talking about, the little tiny details on things, and we obsess about them. And, if you don't get it, right, we're like, what do you mean you can't see that stitch is too tight? And it's like, what do you mean that color looks the same? Like, no, not even close. So it was just everything about this movie. I loved every part of it because it is our life. And I feel like for the first time, it kind of was out there in the world to say, this is a little bit, granted, not every job in fashion is like this, but this is a representation of what we do. Yeah. And it was kind of cool.
Yep. The simplicity of cerulean blue, which has become cliche now, but people use that in lots of different ways. Although it became a film, it also, to your point, kind of represents, that small thread represents an industry.
It does.
And I'd be interested, both you and Mike, and I'll give you my version as well, but how a small idea, cerulean blue in this case, can become something that can be transformational. A simple idea. In fact, the authenticity, as we were saying earlier, the originality, the ability to stay true to what you represent is, in fact, more often than not, what makes money.
Absolutely.
And selling out or cutting off the edges or diluting the message of what you're trying to.
Well, at the very least, it has the most longevity.
Right.
I mean, you can make a decision based on like a copycat decision. Say, oh, this is in style, so let's copy that. And make a kind of a, some manifestation of, of that. And it might sell, but it's not necessarily gonna brand you as a company that's got staying power, because the staying power comes in the vision, not in those little quick moments of, trying to cash in on something. That's what
in fact, fast fashion's not doing so well.
No, well, what goes around comes around, right? We've learned that definitely in the fashion industry. I think the other element that we haven't talked about yet that really I've realized over the course of this time recently matters is having people who aren't afraid to take risks, whether it's your customer, whether it's people on your team, whether it's your own leadership team. When you have a group of people who are willing to be open-minded, to be flexible, and to take risks, that's game-changing right
Absolutely.
now. It is. To me, it is game-changing right now, and that
almost seems like particularly now.
Now, because the customer is so savvy now. She has so many choices. She's moving so fast that you've got to have a team that isn't afraid to take risks. And for us, after having a long course of not doing well and losing track of who we were, gaining that momentum back in my team so that they would be able to take risks, it took a little while, right? Like after the first we got our mojo back, okay, maybe. Even now, I actually think my job as a leader, aside from pushing, creativity and, openness, is pushing people to take risks and letting them know that I'd rather, we have a saying in our industry, it's better to fall forward than fall back.
That's great. That's
that.
fantastic.
Right?
Yeah.
And the other thing we're saying now a lot is we're holding hands, we're doing it together, right? So if this doesn't work, we're doing it together. You're not there by yourself. And I think those kinds of things that help get the risk out of it allow people then to be innovative, to be creative, and to do things differently. I mean, our industry kind of is all about being inspired by something, right? It all goes back to at one point somebody was inspired and this is happening. And how I look at it for our customer is, what does she need, right? Because right now, I mean, fashion, you can buy clothes all you want, but most women who are in their 40s and 50s, they've got a closet full of stuff. And for them to make a decision to go out and buy something, to go on the web, to look something up, I feel like where we can break through is by giving her something she doesn't have in her closet. So when we started seeing early signs of the off the shoulder, right? I went in my own closet and I said, I actually don't even have this anymore. I mean, at some point I'm sure I did, but I've given it away, and it's so relevant. And wow, talk about a woman in that age. Like, this is what you're showing, and you're covering this, and wow, talk about sexuality, confidence, like really, and something I don't have. This is going to be good for us. And so we jumped on it, and some of it we kind of created, some of it we were inspired by, and then all of a sudden we've created a movement, right? And then you're seeing it all over, and that's the part of what I do that really makes me happy, because whether I'm seeing somebody that's wearing something from us, or I'm seeing something that I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Like, we've helped empower women to actually wear that.
So let's talk about teams and empowering teams and finding the way inside of people, hearts, minds, souls, whatever way we can with the handful of keys that we have to open up the doors. Because to actually problem solve or to break through obstacles, to get to we know something we have to achieve, is very difficult for people. And it's difficult for a person singly on their own, never mind a collective of people, to try to rally them to get through that. And that combination of fears and lack of esteem or minimal self-esteem or something that happened 5 minutes ago, literally, can change the behavior of how somebody is able to push ahead. And we have responsibilities to achieve some kind of goal. And in your case, Mike, it's a Broadway show or one of the musical projects you're working on. In Sheryl's world, it's trying to find the style or the line or the season or the kind of inspiration somebody needs to cross that line. It is not such an easy thing to do. And so what steps do you take to connect with people so that it's okay, so that we can find the path, because it's not all the same. What are some of the things that you in your world use that are part of your tools and things that you use?
I think, again, if you think about it all has to be authentic no matter what you do, right? And so I wear my heart on my sleeve, my door is always open, I'm sympathetic and I'm compassionate, and I love people and to hear stories and how can I help, and I have this nurturing nature about me. So that kind of manifests itself sometimes in good ways and sometimes in bad ways. What I found over the course of time is people want to be valued. Straight up, I want you to actually think and believe that what I'm doing creates value to the customer, to the other cross-functional teams, to you, to whoever it is. And I think at every level in the organization, for people to feel like you value them.
Your responsibility is obviously being authentic and real, but also you kind of said find what's valuable in them, right? To make it okay.
Yeah.
That by listening, they get a chance to express who they are.
Absolutely.
I had this situation recently where a pretty senior person was struggling with taking a risk for the next level of responsibility. And we had lots of conversations, and I figured out that finally the key was for me to say, in essence, I have your back.
Right.
That nothing bad's gonna happen.
Right.
That at the end of this, however it works out, you can take that risk. And the downside risk will not be as bad as what's in your head. And we're just going to go on this journey.
Yeah.
And we'll figure it out. But it took a lot of efforts to finally find the key that kind of unlocked the conversation. But it did start with being completely okay and open with whatever was going to happen.
Yep.
And I had to be okay with that too.
You took the risk out of it, out of the equation
Yeah.
for her.
Yeah. That the worst scenario, whatever was in someone's head,
Yeah.
is part of what we're responsible for. I think in music also, where you're taking risks every second. Even though the note's on paper or you're even improvising, you still have to have a level of belief. That is kind of what you said earlier, that group of people are the right people to take that risk, and that whatever happens, you're okay with as that leader in the moment. And vice versa, that they can reflect on you and each other in a way that everybody's okay with.
So this idea of a team has to be not just kind of an abstract term, you're my team. No, you got to show them that you're my team. You got to be really involved in their day-to-day and show them that you're actually a part of it. Everybody's a part of this, and it's a two-way street. And I think that's the best way to go.
How do you get creativity out of people that have the fear or have the lack of confidence?
I think that people need small wins, right? So if you can start to see some small wins and bring them up, right? So business might not be good, but one of the key indicators is positive. How do you build that up and start to talk about that? And to me, it's small wins all of a sudden are bigger wins and bigger wins and bigger wins. So if you're starting to feel good because you've got a couple small wins, then, I mean, it's how I dug myself out as well. I had to find those nuggets that kept me going and kept me motivated. And those are the things that I would talk to. Now, granted, they weren't the big KPIs that everyone, was looking for in the company, but they were signs to me that said, we're on the right track. Stay true. You're doing it. So for me, I then started doing that with my team. But look what you guys did. Look how many you got right. Look, we did this well. Like, celebrate. It's like start celebrating the small wins, and then all of a sudden, they're happening a lot, and then people are starting to feel confident. And there's nothing like, again, we talk about confidence in Boston Pepper for the women and the clothes we want, but there's nothing like confidence in anything you do in life, right? I feel like you could conquer anything, a disease, no matter what it is, you could conquer it if you have confidence. And it may not be the end result you want, it might not be the best end result, but you're gonna do it, and that journey is gonna be so much better because you're approaching it with such a different attitude. And I just think when that stuff happens, it's infectious. It's like crazy good.
Infectious.
Yep.